One Piece, like other battle shonen, is victim to a lot of outlandish ways to power scale the series. If you've ever seen a tier list power scaling One Piece, you'd probably see a common trend, putting a title on different tiers of strength rather than going for S, A, B, C, and so on. Those titles would be Pirate King, Yonko level, Admiral level, YC1, YC2, and etc. Well, in today's video, let's talk about these power rankings and why it's a problem in One Piece. What's up guys, versus Gambly here, and in today's video, I want to talk about power rankings, power levels, or whatever you want to call this bullshit. Superior IQ already made a very good video on the topic, and I think you guys should go check it out. What I'm doing here is just saying my own thoughts and why I think it's a problem right now in my opinion. Before we get into it, yo, how did you find this video? The home tab? Well, if you didn't find it on your subscription tab, let's change that. You're enjoying the content, right? Then subscribe. It's a win-win for both of us. Before we get into what the problem with power ranking is, I have to first explain what they are and how they're used in the community. Power rankings are what the One Piece community use to portray the strength of a certain character. Like I said earlier, you would most likely see them in tier list. Off the top of my head, I've seen things like Pirate King at the top, Yonko right below that, Admiral right below that, YC1, and so on and so forth. This is like the equivalent of people using the grades of sorcerers to rate character strength in Jujutsu Kaisen. For example, putting a tier at the top as special grade, then supreme grade 1, then grade 1, and so on and so forth. From the outside view, you could say this is a good idea, ranking characters by the tier of strength they might place in. Yes, that is a good idea. However, putting the titles on them is what makes it a problem. What I mean by this, well, let's get into an example of these titles making zero sense. Now, answer this for me. What does it mean to be Yonko level? Automatically, you might have thought that it means you're a Yonko, or at least relative to the Yonko. That's the common assumption to get to. But then you realize that this title of Yonko was ruined over a year ago when the likes of Buggy became one. Well, now, Buggy is a Yonko. Does that make him Yonko level? No? Well, why? He's a Yonko. How could he be anything lower than Yonko level? Let's get into another example. What tier would you rank Mihawk in? The majority would say Yonko level because he's relative to the likes of Shanks, who's a Yonko himself. Okay, but now he's a Yonko commander. Why would he be Yonko level if he's a Yonko commander? Doesn't that make Mihawk a YC1 and therefore he should stay in that tier? Okay, what tier would you put Romance Don Luffy at? If you said anything other than Yonko level, you're biased because we've seen Luffy beat Buggy, who's now a Yonko. You see what I'm getting at here? These titles are literally useless and shouldn't be the tiers of strength we rank characters based off. Since Buggy, literal fodder, is a Yonko now, how the hell do we determine what Yonko level is and what is not? Since Katakuri is a YC1, does that mean the other YC1 like Ben Beckman and Dracula f***ing Mihawk is in the same tier as him just because they're in the same position on different crews? No, these titles or power rankings for strength do not exist, and do you know why? Because One Piece isn't just some regular linear power scaling series. Katakuri is debatably the weakest YC1 we have ever seen, but we're supposed to just put him at, in quotations, YC1 level just because he is one. This is absolutely flawed because we can even put people who are second commanders or at, in quotations, YC2 level above him. But we're just going to ignore that because Katakuri is at the second highest position on his crew. Look, Katakuri fans, before you get mad, actually hear me out and understand what I'm about to say. This agenda of putting all the Yonko commanders in the same tier because they're in the same position on completely different crews is stupid. Just because Katakuri is second in command on his crew, it doesn't mean that he's as strong as the other first commanders. It means he's stronger than everyone else on his crew. Are you seeing the flaw in this logic now? Just because someone is stronger than everyone else on a crew, he's the first commander. No matter how strong the others are, we can just put him all the way to first commander level because he's stronger than fodder. Not because he has feats that make him relative to the other Yonko first commanders. No. It's just because he's the second strongest on his crew. Okay, maybe I'm not getting through to you guys, so let's make a fun analogy. Let's say Ja Morant was on a team with absolutely ass players, and so therefore, he was the best player there. Then let's say LeBron was on a team with the likes of Steph Curry, KD, and Kyrie Irving. So LeBron is the best on that team, right? Now imagine these two teams went to the finals only because of their dominance of a terrible league. Since LeBron is the best on his team and Ja is the best on his team, does that mean that they're relative in skill? No. And that's the problem with this power ranking bullshit. Ja in this scenario is meant to represent Katakuri, someone definitely strong and skilled, but is just the best on a team full of fodder, just like the Big Mom Pirates. LeBron is supposed to represent someone like Ben Beckman, someone really strong and skilled, but the best on an extremely talented team, like the Red Hair Pirates. They got to the finals because of their domination of a shit league, just like how Big Mom became a Yonko because of her influence and power compared to all the other fodder pirate crews. But we're supposed to say Ja and LeBron, or Katakuri and Ben Beckman, are relative or on the same tier because they're the strongest on their team? That's just stupid. And that's literally what power ranking is. YC1 does not exist. It's a cope that Katakuri fans like to use to hype up their shit tier character that can't even hang with the likes of the other characters in the, in quotations, YC1 tier. This isn't even taking into account the fact that some Yonko crews don't even base their ranks off of strength. Burgess is the captain of the first ship. Doesn't that make him the YC1 of the crew? But Shiryu is Blackbeard's number 2, so how does that work? Who's the one at YC1 level there? Or maybe when we look at Whitebeard's crew, where Oda literally stated that their crew isn't based off strength, other than Jozu, Vista, and Marco. Because Marco is the YC1, is Odin weaker than him? No. Since Vista is the 5th commander, does that mean Dodge is stronger than him? No! And back to Odin. Since he was the YC2, does that make him weaker than Katakuri, who's a YC1? No. And that's my point in play. What the hell is a YC1? How do you know if someone is YC1 level if that level varies incredibly? We have literal fodder like Katakuri and maybe Burgess at YC1, but then we have someone like Mihawk as well at YC1. There is no in between. This level literally does not exist. Okay, that's enough about Yonko commanders, because I think you should understand now that Katakuri is a bum who's been overrated by a meaningless title. But now let's move on to 3 tiers regarded as the peak of One Piece: Admiral, Yonko, and Pirate King. Now obviously Pirate King is like the most obscure thing, but let me start off by saying that Pirate King is the dumbest shit I've ever heard. Even before chapter 1082, this shouldn't have been a thing, but when chapter 1082 came out, it literally confirmed what I always thought. Pirate King is not a tier of strength that signifies you're the strongest. The reason this has been the assumption is because Roger is believed to be the strongest and he's the Pirate King. Little do people know that it wasn't his strength that earned him his title. It's the fact that only he gave a shit about it. Disagree? Let's look at what was said in chapter 1082. After Buggy suggests that they should go claim the One Piece, Mihawk and Crocodile get mad, saying it's a stupid thing to go for without a plan. Mihawk is like the majority of the community here. He says, "Do you really expect us to pick fights with Red Hair, Blackbeard, and Straw Hat?" And look at what Buggy says in response. "It's a scramble for the treasure. We only need to beat them to it." Guys, Buggy has literally admitted that the title of Pirate King isn't about picking fights or battling for it. No, it's about getting to the One Piece first. All they have to do is beat them to it. And then y'all will just ignore all that. If Buggy, this absolute clown and definition of fodder, gets to the One Piece first and becomes Pirate King because he beats them to it, does that make him Pirate King level? What do you mean no? But he's the Pirate King. Buggy is already Yonko level because he's a Yonko. Why not make him Pirate King level? The supposed peak of all One Piece power because he got to the One Piece first. Now let's talk about Yonko level. This is also tarnished and absolutely reduced to nothingness because anyone can get that rank. It doesn't matter how strong you are relative to the others, which makes a tier named after it very, 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 very stupid. First of all, again, what the fuck does it mean to be Yonko level? You can't say be relative to the other Yonko because damn near everyone in the series would be Yonko level. Remember that Buggy is one too. And you can't cherry pick saying anyone other than Buggy because that just proves this is a stupid thing to name as a tier. If anything, this tier would be at the bottom because Buggy is the bare minimum for it. But you never see that because people still want to hold on to their copes, claiming Yonkos over Admirals, even though you have literal fodder in this lineup. You could argue that he's a Yonko because they believe he's stronger than Mihawk. That's just not true. They've never said this shit. In fact, they gave Buggy a lower bounty than Mihawk. So what are we saying right now? And finally, this leads to Admiral level. This is also tarnished to a certain extent, but the real problem with it is the fact that you literally cannot gauge where this tier would land. Everyone answer this for me. Has any Admiral that we've ever seen gone all out? Oh, none? So how are we saying someone is Admiral level when we don't even know the strength that got the Admirals to that rank? Are we all just some dickheads? We've seen 4 Yonkos go all out using things that literally reduce their lifespan and whatever this nigga does, but we have never seen an Admiral even reach near their peak because every time they fight, they're handicapped by the situation they're in. And if this is the case, why is this even a tier? Why do we say Admirals are weaker than the Yonkos? Why do we say Admiral tier is below Yonko tier? It doesn't make sense, does it? And that's the problem with that tier. Along with every other fucking tier, it's all stupid. We should literally just stick to the S, A, B, C, F tiers because these power rankings mean nothing. And I hope I showed you the light. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, check out Superior IQ's video on the matter and show him support. He did this first. Anyways, if you enjoyed this, go ahead and leave a like and subscribe. And I'll catch y'all in the next one.